Welcome back to the studio. We're here for another day of On the Road Quilt Kit. And let's see, what are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Block number 6. So it is. It says block number 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Block number 7. I don't get it. We're doing block number 7 according to the pattern kit, but my count is only 6. But I'll figure that out as I go. Maybe when I pause. I was warming up the iron this morning, and I was texting with my mother, and I got my background piece out for this month's block. And I was pressing and spritzing, making sure I had all the wrinkles out, and texting with my mother. And I promptly scorched my background fabric. Fortunately, when I bought the fabric, I had extra, so I went upstairs and cut me another slice. But that just reiterates my point that I will make later with the Teflon pressing sheet, that it does protect the fabric from getting scorched while we're letting the heat permeate through that steam seam too. So it really is important to use that pressing sheet, for me anyway, because sometimes my mind starts daydreaming. So I'm going to bring the camera in, and we're going to start working on this month's block. I'll pull out the color cover sheet and all of the pieces. This is probably one of the largest blocks that we'll work on in this particular quilt series, but it's going to go pretty quick, just like the rest of them have. And we can get, I think there's only 4 more after this, and then we can get assembling. So let's bring the camera in and let you get a close-up look at what we're doing here on the table. While I was adjusting the camera, I stopped and counted the blocks again. I was counting the house and the little scooter with the trailer as one block for some reason. So we are on block number 7, just as the pattern said. I should always trust the pattern. Should never trust my own count. This is why they say measure twice, cut once, because of people like me. I have just taken my pattern out of the package, and you can see it's got a fair amount of creases in it, and I want to get those creases out. And the way that I do that is by using my dry iron. I always iron this ink side up, and the reason I do that is just so I don't get any ink transfer onto my white table covering on the ironing board. I had that happen one time. I don't know if you can see a little bit of an echo there. It doesn't seem to transfer to the sole plate. So I have my background paper, actual size. This is my placement guide for the pieces, but also this could be used later if you wanted to do a repeat of this and cut out your own shapes. Also, if you wanted to order this as a pattern only, this is what you would be getting, this type of document. And most of our patterns are also available as a SVG file, which stands for Scalable Vector Graphics. That means that this design, once you purchased it and downloaded it, could be increased or decreased in size, but you would be sending it to a machine like a Cameo Silhouette or a Brother Scan and Cut, and the digital files would then be sent to the machine, and they would cut out the pieces accordingly. It is a process though, because you have to cut out the shapes one fabric color at a time, so it is a little bit of a process. Once I get all of my pieces with something like this, I like to just go ahead and separate them by shapes and then by size if that's applicable. So I'm going to put all of my flowers to one side, and then I'll do all the circles. I have my stems I'll put aside. I'll start doing some of the leaf shapes. And actually these particular pieces are flowers. It's one of the flower shapes. They all go together to create that flower. And this is very easily something that you could use with the kids. Help them put things together in color groups. Have them match similar shapes. And that's a way to help keep them occupied, but also to participate in your project. These are the base of the flowers. We have 3 of those here. And we're just about getting it. These will all be flower centers, I believe. Now sometimes I use the light box and sometimes I don't. But I can see the pattern through this paper. Sometimes I have people complain that the light box makes them so that they can't see on the video. Some people say they need the light box, but there's no way to make everybody happy. So I'm just going to leave it off for today and see what happens. I can start placing some of these pieces, and I will tell you that these very thin pieces, sometimes I have a hard time with my thumbs getting that paper backing off because I want to be delicate with them. Sometimes I'll use a pen on the back of the paper to score the paper, but these pieces are so small that it's even hard to do that. So they are a little bit fiddly. And also even these little pieces of paper that come off the back, sometimes those have a little bit of tackiness to them also. So I try and keep them all together in a pile so that when I throw them away they kind of stick to each other and go all together. Because if they start blowing around the studio, they almost stick to the floor and curtains and your pant leg, and it makes it a little bit harder to get rid of them. So I have 2 of my stems down. I have 1 to go. And after this block we have 3 more blocks to go, but they're quite small, so those should go quick also. Now I can just start doing some of the flowers. But what I like to do is really pay attention to the color cover sheet and match the pieces so that the color play works as it was intended to. And I can see right away that according to this, it's upside down, the paper. So I'm just going to flip it upside down so that my 3 flowers are here and my open flower and other flower here, just so I know which way I am putting my pieces in. All of the pieces have a paper backing on it, and it really is just a matter of peel, place, and press. For the first part, we're just peeling the paper off, and I just bend one of the edges a little bit, and usually I can catch the edge of the paper. Sometimes you'll have a piece that during the manufacturing process, because they do this in a factory, there's not somebody doing little individual pieces, where the Steam-A-Seam 2 doesn't catch on the fabric as it should. So the best thing to do is just put the iron back over it with the paper backing on it, and then you can go ahead and let that shape cool until you can handle it, and then you can go ahead and peel it off as you need to. I'm always fidgeting with these shapes because it's amazing how often I get them wrong. Now I can see this one goes underneath the orange, so I'll lift up the orange, and that's what's nice about this Steam Seam 2, because it's repositionable. So we have a purple one, and it's the purple big dots. Once we get these larger pieces on, it's really easy to go in and just put the flower centers on. So that's really what I'm focusing on. We have the teal one, dark teal with the big dots. I've seen people do amazing things with the pattern while using their own fabric, make it really scrappy. I don't know often if they are using the pattern only or if they're using the SVG files and cutting it, but they really do look beautiful. So let's see, we have the orange flowers, this one, the dark teal is this one, and the purple one is here. And I can go ahead also and put my centers on. Big dot orange. Once I get these pieces, then I will know I'm down to fewer components. It's easier to figure out where the pieces go. The little tiny circles are the ones I like to set a little bit off center. Kind of gives a quirky feel to the flowers. Now, some of you might want to play around more than what I'm doing. I'm really going by the pattern. Some of you might enjoy testing some of the circles on different flowers and seeing what color combinations you like best. It was really hot here last night, and it's rainy today, and I'm not sure my energy level is quite at its peak. I actually really like to sleep more in the winter when it's quite cold out. I sleep with my window open, my bedroom window open, and the box fan on, pointing right at the bed all winter, even when it's 0 degrees out. After you've been doing these for a while, you really get into a routine with them, and it makes them very easy to do. I'm kind of saving my blossom flower for the last. My belly is so big I have to keep checking my belly to see if any of the pieces are stuck there. It's my first place I look when I'm missing one. Okay, so now all I have left are my 3 blossom flowers. And these I always do the center petal first because it appears to go in the back. And then it looks like the color dot goes next, and there's always a left and a right. And I want both the point, I want the curve to match, but also the point. Even though a lot of the bottom will get covered with the bottom part of the stem. I often talk about doing this with different age groups and different family members. I really think even it would be nice if you did this with a friend or a family member. You had them help each month, maybe just have a light dinner or lunch, and you work on this together, and then at the end of the year you could give it to them for a Christmas present or a birthday present or a friend anniversary. So they would have the memory of doing it with you, but also the gift of it, which I think is very nice. But even if you do it with family, have the kids or grandkids help, your niece or nephew, and then you could give it to them later, they have not only the gift, but they also have the memory of creating it and the gift. When my niece Michaela was about, I don't know, 8 or 9 or 10, I was piecing a simple 1-block quilt, but the alternating blocks were all the same, and then the other alternates were patchwork. And it's one of my favorite quilts, that little 1-patch quilt. But she stood there next to me and handed me the pieces, and I was amazed because she was handing them to me in the right order, because she had to keep them both scrappy but also the uniform alternates, and the quilt was on a diagonal, so she knew when to give me my setting triangle for that row. So when she grew up old enough to appreciate the quilt, then I gifted her the quilt because she had helped me make it. And I think that's just something that makes the piece a little bit more meaningful. I've heard people say often that this new generation doesn't collect possessions so much as they collect experiences and memories. And this is one of those things that could be both. This is my last 2 pieces. No, I have 3 pieces. After this, I can go ahead and get my iron set up. I know it's on because I scorched my earlier piece of fabric. And then I can go ahead and get my paper pattern out of the way. I can fuse this one. and this will be another one that I can pin up on the quilt. So I'm going to get it switched out, and then we'll get the water bottle and the iron, and we'll go ahead and fuse this in place. I have all of my pieces in place according to the pattern. Remember, all of these pieces are still completely repositionable. I could move anything I needed to. I am glancing to make sure that everything is pleasing to my eye the way it's on here, but I think I might just raise that up just a tiny bit because all these pieces are positionable still. If you see behind or underneath my whole block here, I have my Teflon pressing sheet. I am spritzing my block with just plain water with a spritz bottle, and that is because I don't keep water in my iron, and the Steam Seam 2 does require a steam component. So I can go ahead and lay my Teflon pressing sheet out and let the iron start doing its magic. The Teflon pressing sheet works for me in many ways. One of the things that it does, as I mentioned earlier in this video, I was re-ironing my background and I left the iron too long because I was texting my mother and I scorched my background. So the Teflon pressing sheet helps to prevent the iron from scorching the fabric. Also, there is a bonding agent, a bonding layer underneath these shapes. It's Steam Seam 2. And if any of that were to seep out through the edge of the applique and get onto the iron, that would make a mess of my sole plate. So the Teflon pressing sheet also helps keep my sole plate clean on the iron. Another thing that I have done, because I get lazy, is I will push the iron side to side because I'm getting bored. And when I do that without the Teflon pressing sheet, the edge of the sole plate could catch one of the shapes and crinkle it up, and then it's underneath the iron and it's bonding and I can't see it. And so the Teflon pressing sheet keeps the shapes flat while I'm pressing and prevents those edges from getting crinkled up. You do have to keep in mind that the heat from the iron has to permeate through the Teflon pressing sheet and through each of the layers of the applique. In the case of these little flowers, you have a circle with Steam Seam 2, a larger circle, Steam Seam 2, a flower with Steam Seam 2, and a backing. So that's really 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 layers here that the iron heat has to go all the way through, and it has to go through long enough to fuse that bonding agent with the steam. So we want to make sure that we give that time. If this is bonded properly at this stage, this product is permanent and does not require any form of top stitching or quilting. We have aprons and clothes and stuff that we've used this on, canvas bags, wood boards, glass, canvas, metal. This can be fused to a wide variety of types of materials. And as long as it's fused properly from the beginning, it is permanent. Now, I always run out of things to say at this point, which is... I'm sure you're thinking, oh, sure you do. You never run out of things to say. But I mean related to this. So I'm going to go ahead and pause the video and I'm going to go ahead and finish fusing. But I will say once I finish fusing it from the top down, I will flip up my block over, remist it with the water, and I will iron it again, bonding it from the back up as well as the top down, because I want to make sure that heat gets through all the layers. So I'm going to do that now, and I'll show you my block when we're finished. Ooh, I don't need those. Well, we have block number 7 finished. It looks very much like the color cover sheet. So I know that we've done a pretty good job. I can go ahead now and just temporarily hang this on top of my other pieces. I'm just pinning it into the quilt just so we can kind of see this grow. As you can see, we have 3 blocks left at the bottom, and we'll get to those in the preceding months. But in the meantime, I would like to thank you for stopping by the studio today and spending this time with me. I always appreciate it when you watch the videos, and also those of you who make pleasant comments. Makes me feel good. And when you share the video, it helps people in our quilting community who also love quilting projects see these videos as well. If you like Urban Elements Facebook page, that's amazing. If you subscribe to the YouTube channel, that's also amazing, because it increases the algorithm reach on who is watching the videos, who can see them, who they get recommended to. So we really appreciate that. Also, it lets you get notified when we put out a new video, and we put out a minimum of 1 per week. We also put them out for promotions, and when you get notifications, you get notified first when we're having some kind of a sale or promo. So thanks for stopping by the studio today, and again, we'll see you next time. My nose is tickling like there's an ant in there. Get out, ant. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We're on to number 8.